I stood in my kitchen, the one my late husband built with his own hands 40 years ago, when my son Trevor called and said with casual cruelty, "We're moving tomorrow, Mom. I've sold your mansion. The buyers take possession Friday." I felt my fingers tighten around the phone. "Trevor, this is my house. You can't sell my house." His voice turned cold. "Actually, Mom, legally I can. You put it in my name 3 years ago, remember? Brooke and I need the equity." What he didn't know is that I had retained remainder interest in the property. And that mistake? It was about to cost him everything. Welcome to Voice of Auntie Kattie, to every single one of my beautiful subscribers watching right now. Thank you. Your support means the world to me, and I'm so grateful you're here. Before we begin today's story, let me say a quick prayer for you. Dear Lord, I lift up everyone watching this video right now. Bless them with strength for whatever challenges they're facing. Protect their families, their health, and their finances. Give them wisdom to recognize those who truly love them and courage to stand up against those who would take advantage of their kindness. May they never be ashamed to fight for what's rightfully theirs. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, if this story touches your heart today, please hit that like button. And if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, drop a comment below. You are not alone. Let's begin. The morning light filtered through the windows of my Virginia home, illuminating the copper pots hanging above the kitchen island. This was where I'd taught Trevor to crack eggs when he was 7 years old. Where we'd laughed over flour-dusted faces while baking his father's favorite pecan pie. I was 73 years old. My hair had gone silver, and lines had etched themselves around my eyes and mouth. But those eyes were still clear. Still sharp. The eyes of a woman who'd managed a household alone after her husband died, who volunteered on 3 non-profit boards, who still painted commission pieces that sold for thousands of dollars. The eyes of a woman who was about to be discarded like trash. When my phone rang that Tuesday morning, I answered without hesitation. It was Trevor. My only child. The boy who used to climb into my lap during thunderstorms, who'd sobbed at his father's funeral and held my hand through the entire service. "Hey, Mom," he said. His voice carried that particular tone he'd perfected over the past 5 years. Impatient. Dismissive. "I need to tell you something." "What is it, sweetheart?" "We're moving tomorrow. I've sold your mansion. The buyers take possession Friday." For a moment, I couldn't process the words. They seemed to float in the air between us, impossible and cruel. "What did you just say?" "The house, Mom. I sold it. Brooke and I found this incredible craftsman in Portland that's perfect for us. The property market there is insane right now, and we need the equity." My fingers tightened around the phone until my knuckles turned white. "Trevor, this is my house. You can't sell my house." "Actually, Mom, legally I can." His voice held an edge now, like a blade being sharpened. "You put it in my name 3 years ago, remember? For estate planning purposes." "Estate planning." The words made my stomach turn. "Estate planning was for after I'm gone, Trevor. I'm 73, not dead." He sighed, that long-suffering sigh he used when he thought I was being difficult. "Mom, don't be dramatic. We've already arranged everything. There's a lovely assisted living facility in Richmond, Meadowbrook. They have bridge tournaments and everything. You'll make friends." I thought of the garden my husband and I had planted together. The roses we'd chosen on our 20th anniversary. The oak tree where we'd scattered some of his ashes after cancer took him from us. The studio I'd built where I painted every morning, watching the sun rise over the Blue Ridge Mountains. "I don't want to make friends at an assisted living facility, Trevor. I want to stay in my home." "Your home is too big for you anyway. The maintenance alone, I've maintained it perfectly fine. Look, the papers are already signed. The closing is Thursday." His voice took on that final, definitive tone. "The movers come tomorrow at 9 to pack your things. We've rented you a storage unit for anything that won't fit in your new apartment." I heard a woman's voice in the background. Brooke. His wife of 4 years. Too muted to make out the words, but I knew that sugary tone. "We'll come by tonight to help you sort through what you want to keep," Trevor continued. Then the line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, staring at my reflection in the darkened screen. The woman looking back at me had clear eyes. Alert eyes. Not the eyes of someone who needed to be warehoused in a facility for the elderly and infirm, but none of that mattered to my son. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that betrayal seemed impossible? That's what it feels like to be a mother. You carry a child for 9 months. You nurse them through fevers and nightmares. You sacrifice your own dreams so theirs can come true. And you never not for 1 second believe they could look at you and see nothing but dollar signs. I should have seen it coming. The signs had been there, bright as warning flares, but I'd looked away because they came from Trevor. My baby boy.it started small. About a year after the wedding, Trevor called me. His voice was earnest, almost embarrassed. Mom, I hate to ask this, but could you help us with rent this month? Just this once. Brooke's between jobs, and we're in a tight spot. I'd send $2,000 without hesitation. That's what mothers do. We help our children. Then came the car payment. 3 months later, Mom, our car broke down, and we need to get a new one. The monthly payment is killing us. Could you cover it just until Brooke's freelance work picks up? I paid it every month. For 2 years, then the medical bills. Credit card debt. Utility bills. Insurance payments. Each request came with that same earnest voice. We'll pay you back, Mom. We're just in a tight spot right now. I never asked for repayment. That's not how family works, I told myself. One sleepless night, I'd calculated everything. In 4 years, I'd given them over $90,000. Not loaned. Given. Because every time I gently suggested they start paying me back, Trevor's voice would harden just slightly. I thought family helped each other, Mom. Dad would have helped us. The guilt always worked. How could I argue with my dead husband's memory? Then came the estate planning meeting. Trevor had arranged it himself. Said he was worried about protecting my assets. The lawyer was a friend of Brooke's family, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit who spoke in rapid-fire legal terms I didn't fully understand. Mrs. Winters, by transferring the property to your son's name now, you'll avoid probate and save significantly on estate taxes, she'd explained, sliding papers across her desk. I'd hesitated, my pen hovering over the signature line. But what if I need to sell? What if something happens? You retain remainder interest, the lawyer said quickly. It's all very standard. Your son is simply being proactive about protecting your legacy. Trevor had nodded along, his face so sincere, so concerned. I'd signed, because I trusted my son. Because I never imagined my own child would use my trust as a weapon. And now, standing in my kitchen with the phone still warm in my hand, I understood the truth. They'd been planning this for years. Every dollar I'd given them hadn't been helping them through hard times. It had been financing their real life, the one they'd live after they threw me away. Trevor and Brooke arrived at 7 that evening. I'd spent the afternoon in a fog, moving through rooms I'd lived in for 4 decades. Touching furniture my husband had chosen. Looking at photographs spanning a lifetime. Each trinket, each painting, each carefully chosen piece held the weight of memories. Brooke came in first. She wore expensive yoga pants, the kind that cost more than my monthly grocery bill, and carried 2 empty boxes. Her highlighted hair was pulled back in a perfect ponytail, and she had that slightly breathless quality of someone who'd just come from an exercise class. Beverly. She set the boxes down and moved toward me with outstretched arms, her smile bright and fake. I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this. I stepped back. Don't. Her face flickered surprise, then irritation, quickly masked by concern. I know change is hard, she said in that patronizing tone people use with children and the elderly. But you'll love Meadowbrook. My grandmother was there before she passed, and she said the staff was wonderful. Your grandmother had dementia, I said quietly. I don't. Trevor came in behind her, already scrolling through his phone. He'd gained weight since the wedding. His face was fuller, softer. The boy who used to run cross-country had been replaced by a man who sat in an office all day, making spreadsheets while his mother's life was reduced to boxes and storage units. Hey, Mom. He kissed my cheek automatically, still looking at his screen. We need to move fast. The buyers want to do a walkthrough tomorrow afternoon. I watched him. Really watched him. When had my son become this stranger? Trevor, I need to understand something. I kept my voice level, though my heart was pounding. How did you transfer the deed without my knowing? He finally looked up. I saw a flash of something defensiveness, maybe guilt before his expression smoothed into patient condescension. You signed the papers, Mom. At the lawyer's office. Remember, I signed estate planning papers. Not a sale, same difference. He shrugged. The house was in my name. Legally, I can do what I want with it. Brooke had started opening drawers in my kitchen. She pulled out my grandmother's china delicate porcelain teacups painted with violets. Each one a treasure passed down through 3 generations. We'll keep the good stuff, she said brightly, examining a teacup against the light. The rest we can donate. No point paying for storage space for things you won't use in your apartment. I watched her handle those teacups, the ones my grandmother had used for Sunday tea, the ones my mother had carefully wrapped and given to me on my wedding day, the ones I'd promised to pass down to Trevor's children someday. Something inside me cracked. Not broke. Cracked. Like ice on a pond, the fracture spreading slowly, inevitably. Put those down. Brooke looked up, startled. Put them down. Now, Beverly, I'm just trying to help. You're not helping. My voice rose despite my intention to stay calm. You're stealing my life and calling it kindness. I crossed the kitchen and took the teacups from her hands. Our eyes met, and for the first time, I saw her mask slip completely. Beneath the sweet smile and fake concern was cold calculation. Get out of my house. Trevor's jaw tightened. Mom, don't make this harder than it has to be. Harder than it has to be? I couldn't stop the words now. They poured out like water through a broken dam. You sold my home out from under me. You're forcing me into a facility for old people who can't care for themselves. You've been draining my bank account for 4 years. How exactly could this be harder? You're being irrational, Brooke said, her sweet mask gone now, replaced by irritation. We're doing this for your own good. You're getting older, and this house is too much for you to maintain. What if you fall? What if something happens and nobody finds you for days? I'm 73 and in perfect health, for now, Trevor said quietly. His voice carried a threat wrapped in false concern. But Mom, you have to face facts. You're not getting any younger. It's better to make these transitions now, while you're still capable of understanding what's happening. The implication hung in the air between us. While you're still capable of understanding. As if my mental faculties were already declining. As if I were already sliding into incompetence. This was my son. The child I'd carried for 9 months, nursed through childhood illnesses, supported through college and career struggles. And he was talking to me like I was already senile. My hands were shaking now. Not from fear. From rage. Get out, I repeated. Mom, get out of my house. My voice echoed through the kitchen, bouncing off the walls my husband had built, reverberating through 40 years of memories. They left. But not before Trevor turned at the door with that wounded expression he'd perfected as a teenager, the one that said I was the one being unreasonable. We're just trying to help you, he said softly. I'm sorry you can't see that. The door closed behind them. After they drove away, I sat in my husband's study. His books still lined the shelves. The smell of his pipe tobacco still lingered after all these years, a ghost of comfort in a world that had suddenly become hostile. I thought about calling someone. My sister in California, maybe. Or one of my friends from the garden club. But shame kept my hand away from the phone, the shame of admitting I'd raised a son who would do this. The shame of being old and vulnerable and stupid enough to sign away my own home. No, not shame, that wasn't what I felt burning in my chest. It was rage. Pure, crystalline rage that burned away the grief and confusion and left something harder behind. Something that knew exactly what needed to be done. I spent that night at my computer in the study, pulling up documents I'd saved over the years. Bank statements. Transfer records. Emails. Every piece of evidence laid out in black and white, telling the story of 4 years of systematic manipulation. The numbers glowed on the screen. $2,000 for rent. $450 for the car payment. $3,200 for medical bills. $1,800 for credit card debt. Month after month after month. $92,000. That was the exact figure, but there was something else. I opened the file where I'd saved copies of the estate planning paperwork from 3 years ago. This time, I read through it carefully, no lawyer rushing me, no son hovering impatiently, no pressure to just sign and trust. The language was deliberately confusing, but certain phrases jumped out at me now: transfer of property interest, remainder interest retained by grantor, revocable during grantor's lifetime. My pulse quickened. Remainder interest. I'd retained remainder interest. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed: Lawrence Briggs. My husband's attorney. The man who'd handled our actual estate planning decades ago, who'd drawn up a proper will that protected both of us. The phone rang 3 times before a gravelly voice answered. Beverly? It's midnight. What's wrong, Lawrence? I need to know something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. My voice was steady now, focused. If I transferred my house to my son's name but retained remainder interest, can he sell it without my permission? A long pause. I heard sheets rustling, the click of a lamp. Beverly, what happened? So I told him. Everything. The 4 years of financial requests. The estate planning meeting with Brooke's lawyer friend. Trevor's call this morning announcing he'd sold my house. The movers coming at 9. The assisted living facility waiting to warehouse me. When I finished, Lawrence swore, a sharp, vicious word I'd never heard him use in 30 years of knowing him. That son of a, he caught himself. Pardon my language, Beverly, but what Trevor's doing is elder abuse. Financial exploitation. And no, he absolutely cannot sell that property without your consent if you retained remainder interest. The papers said I did. Then the sale is invalid. His voice was sharp now, alert despite the late hour. Trevor may think he owns that house, but if you retained any interest in the property, and remainder interest counts, any sale requires your signature on the deed transfer. Hope flickered in my chest like a candle flame in the dark. Are you sure? I've been practicing real estate law for 42 years. I'm sure. I heard papers shuffling. Beverly, I need you to do something for me first thing tomorrow morning. Go to the courthouse when they open. Pull the deed records. See exactly what was filed. Then call me back immediately. The movers are coming at 9. Don't let them in. In fact, if they show up and try to force entry, call the police. This is your home, and Trevor's attempting to commit fraud. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of the study. The old house settled around me with familiar creaks and whispers. The beams my husband had chosen. The floors we'd walked together. The walls that had witnessed our entire marriage. They thought they could take it from me. They thought I was too old, too trusting, too weak to fight back. They had no idea who they were dealing with. At 8 o'clock the next morning, I was standing outside the clerk of court's office when they unlocked the doors. The clerk, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, barely glanced up as I approached the counter. I need to pull deed records for a property, I said, sliding a paper with my address across the counter. She disappeared into a back room. 20 minutes later, she returned with a file folder stuffed with documents. I sat at one of the public tables and went through every page. And there it was, clear as daylight. I had retained full remainder interest in the property. The transfer to Trevor was incomplete. Any sale required my signature as the holder of remainder interest. Trevor's lawyer friend had filed paperwork that looked official but was fundamentally flawed. Whether deliberately or through incompetence, I didn't know. But the result was the same: my son couldn't sell my house. My hands trembled as I made copies of everything. Not from fear now. From anticipation. I called Lawrence from the courthouse steps, the morning sun warm on my face. You were right. I retained remainder interest. The transfer was incomplete. I'm coming down there right now. His voice carried the sharp edge of a man preparing for battle. Don't do anything until I arrive. Beverly, we're going to destroy him. The word should have shocked me. But instead, I felt a grim satisfaction settle into my bones. Good. Trevor called at 9:15. I was back home by then, standing in my kitchen with all the doors locked. Through the window, I could see a moving truck parked in my driveway. Two men in uniform stood by the back, looking confused. "Mom, the movers say you won't let them in." "What's going on?" His voice was tight with irritation barely held in check. "The sale is invalid, Trevor. The house is still mine." Silence. "Then, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about fraud. I retained remainder interest in the property. You can't sell without my permission, which I'm not giving, Mom. The papers were filed incorrectly. Possibly deliberately. I watched the movers talking on their phones, probably calling Trevor's number. I have an attorney looking into it right now. Lawrence Briggs. Remember him? Dad's lawyer?" Trevor's voice changed. It dropped into that dangerous quiet I remembered from his teenage years, when he'd been caught in a lie and was calculating his next move. "Mom, if you fight this, you're going to lose. The buyers have already put down earnest money. If the sale falls through, they'll sue. You'll be responsible for their losses. Do you have that kind of money? Do you want to spend your final years in court?" "No, Trevor." My voice stayed calm, though my heart was racing. "You'll be responsible. Because you tried to sell property you don't fully own." "Jesus Christ, Mom, why are you being so difficult?" "We're trying to help you." "By stealing my home? By lying to me? By treating me like I'm already dead?" My fingers tightened around the phone. "No. You wanted my money and my house, and you thought I was too old and stupid to stop you. If you do this," his voice turned venomous now, all pretense of concern stripped away. "If you do this, I'll never forgive you. Do you understand that? You'll never see me again. Never meet your grandchildren if we have them. You'll die alone in that house." The threat hung in the air between us. He was playing his final card, the promise of family, of connection, of not dying alone. But I'd already died alone the moment he decided my house mattered more than my heart. "Good," I said quietly. "Because I'll never forgive you either." I hung up. Through the window, I watched the moving truck pull away. If you're watching this and you've ever had to stand up to someone you love, hit that like button right now. Because what I'm about to tell you next will show you why documentation is everything. Lawrence arrived an hour later, carrying a leather briefcase that looked older than Trevor. He was 78 now, his hair completely white, but his eyes were sharp as broken glass. "Show me everything," he said, settling at my dining room table. I laid it all out. The bank statements showing 4 years of payments. The emails where I gently asked about repayment and Trevor had responded with guilt trips. The voicemails where he'd promised just this once, Mom. The estate planning paperwork with its deliberately confusing language. The deed records from the courthouse showing my retained interest. Lawrence went through each document with the methodical precision of a surgeon. He made notes. Cross-referenced dates. Built a timeline that showed the systematic nature of the exploitation. "They've been planning this for at least 2 years, he said finally, looking up at me. "Possibly longer." The financial requests started small to establish a pattern of dependence. "They isolated you gradually. How often do you see your friends now compared to 4 years ago?" I thought about it. My garden club meetings. Sunday brunches with college friends. Volunteer work at the library. Less, I admitted. Trevor always had reasons why I couldn't make it. He needed help with something. Brooke was having a crisis. They needed me to watch their apartment while they were away, classic isolation technique. Lawrence made another note. It makes the victim dependent on the abuser for social connection. When they finally make their move, you have fewer people to turn to. But they made mistakes, I said. The deed transfer was incomplete. That's their first mistake. Their second, he pulled out another document, this one showing the mover contract. "Is that your son scheduled the movers 3 weeks ago?" Before he even called to tell you about the sale, I stared at the date on the contract. 3 weeks. This wasn't a sudden decision driven by concern for my welfare. This was premeditated. What else? I asked. Lawrence's smile was cold. We're going to find out. Because I'm filing criminal charges today. Elder abuse. Fraud. Attempted theft. And civil charges to recover every dollar they took from you. Can we win? He looked at me over his reading glasses. Beverly, they handed us the case on a silver platter. They were so convinced you wouldn't fight back that they got sloppy. Yes, we can win. But I need to know, are you prepared for what this means? Trevor will go to prison if we pursue this fully. His life will be destroyed. I thought about my son. The boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard, calling them flowers. Who'd cried when his goldfish died. Who'd promised at his father's funeral that he'd always take care of me. That boy was gone. In his place was a man who'd looked at his mother and seen nothing but an obstacle between him and money. Do it, I said. File everything. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings and depositions. Lawrence worked with the efficiency of a man who'd been waiting his entire career for a case like this. He had a personal hatred for elder abuse, he told me. His own mother had been swindled by a caretaker years ago. I became a lawyer to fight people like your son, he said. People who prey on trust and love. The picture that emerged was worse than I'd thought. Trevor and Brooke hadn't just manipulated me financially. They'd been documenting everything, building what they thought was a case for my incompetence. Brooke had been taking photos of my house, piles of mail I hadn't opened immediately, a dish left in the sink overnight, dust on a bookshelf. Little things they planned to use as evidence that I couldn't care for myself. They'd even discussed putting me on medication to make me more manageable once I was at Meadowbrook. I found this in emails Lawrence's investigator recovered from Brooke's account. We need her calm and compliant, Brooke had written to Trevor. If she fights the move, we might need to pursue a competency hearing. Dr. Richards owes me a favor. He can write whatever evaluation we need. Reading those words felt like being stabbed. They'd planned to drug me. To have me declared incompetent. To steal not just my home and money, but my very identity as a functioning human being. But they'd made mistakes. Crucial, devastating mistakes. The deed transfer was incomplete. That was the foundation of our case. But there was more. Their email communications were recoverable. Every message about finally getting Mom's house and accessing the equity painted a clear picture of premeditation and greed. The movers they'd hired had detailed contracts showing Trevor had scheduled them 3 weeks before his phone call to me. This proved the announcement wasn't a sudden concern for my welfare but a planned ambush, but the most damaging evidence came from an unexpected source. Lawrence's investigator pulled security footage from my home's doorbell camera, something I'd forgotten I even had. Trevor had installed it 2 years ago, saying it was for my safety. The footage showed Brooke entering my house with a key I didn't know she had. This was 6 months ago, while I was visiting my sister in California. She spent 2 hours inside, going through my desk, my filing cabinets, my personal documents. What was she looking for? I asked Lawrence. Bonds, most likely. Or other assets Trevor didn't know about. He replayed the footage, showing Brooke photographing papers with her phone. Your husband left you savings bonds, didn't he? Yes. $20,000 worth. Trevor doesn't know about them. He does now. Or at least Brooke does. Lawrence froze the image on Brooke's face as she photographed my bond certificates. This is breaking and entering. Theft of personal information. It's criminal. We had them. We had everything we needed. Lawrence filed the charges on a Friday afternoon. Criminal charges, elder abuse, fraud, attempted theft, and breaking and entering. Civil charges, recovery of the $92,000 plus interest, pain and suffering, and legal fees. Trevor and Brooke received the papers the following Monday. Trevor called me 17 times that day. I didn't answer. He left voicemails that progressed from confusion to anger to panic. Mom, what are you doing? This is insane. We were trying to help you. This is how you repay us. You're going to regret this. I promise you, you're going to regret this. The final voicemail was from Brooke. Her voice was shaking, all the fake sweetness gone. You bitter old witch. We gave you years of our lives. We took care of you. And this is how you thank us? I hope you die alone in that house. I hope nobody finds you for weeks. Lawrence had the voicemails transcribed and added to evidence. Every threat, every moment of revealed hatred, every slip of the mask, all of it went into our case file. Trevor and Brooke hired a legal team. Expensive attorneys from a firm in Richmond who specialized in elder law. Their strategy became clear quickly: paint me as mentally incompetent, claim I'd willingly given them money, argue that the transfer was legitimate and my current actions proved I needed supervision. They filed counterclaims. They requested competency evaluations. They subpoenaed my medical records. They deposed my friends, trying to find anyone who'd say I was forgetful or confused. It didn't work. My medical records showed perfect cognitive health. My doctor, who I'd been seeing for 15 years, testified that I was sharper than most people half my age. My friends from the garden club testified about how Trevor and Brooke had gradually isolated me. How they'd always had excuses when I tried to arrange social events. How Brooke would call and cancel on my behalf, claiming I wasn't feeling well when I was perfectly fine. My sister flew in from California. She testified about phone calls where I'd mentioned feeling confused about the estate planning, and how Trevor had gotten on the line to reassure her it was all proper and legal. He told me Mom was just having senior moments, my sister said on the stand, her voice breaking. He convinced me my sister was declining when she wasn't. He used my concern against her. Lawrence's testimony about proper estate law destroyed their defense. He explained in clear terms how the transfer violated basic legal principles, how the paperwork was designed to confuse rather than inform, how any legitimate attorney would have insisted on independent counsel for me, but the most powerful testimony came from someone I'd never met. The real estate agent Trevor had hired to sell my house took the stand on the 8th day of the trial. She was a professional woman in her 40s who'd brought something with her, a recording. When Mr. Winters first contacted me about selling his mother's property, something about the consultation felt wrong, she testified. I have a policy of recording initial meetings for my records. I'm glad I did. Lawrence played the recording for the courtroom. Trevor's voice came through clearly. We need to move fast on this. My mother doesn't know yet, but we're planning to tell her the day before the closing. By then it'll be too late for her to do anything. Brooke's voice: she's going to fight it. She loves that house. Trevor again: she's old. She'll get over it. And if she doesn't, well, she'll be at Meadowbrook where she can't do much about it. We just need to get her out of the house and access the equity. Once that money's in our account, we're finally free. The courtroom went silent. I sat in the gallery, watching Trevor's face go pale. Watching Brooke stare at her hands. Watching their expensive attorneys exchange glances that said they knew the case was over. The real estate agent continued: I was uncomfortable with their approach, but they were clients. I kept the recording in case there were future legal issues. When I was subpoenaed, I realized this was why I'd felt wrong about the whole transaction. Trevor's attorney tried to object, tried to argue the recording was inadmissible, tried to claim it was taken out of context. The judge's stern woman in her 60s shut him down. The recording is clear and unambiguous. It shows premeditation, intent to deceive, and explicit plans to restrict the victim's ability to respond. Objection denied. The trial took 3 weeks total. 21 days of sitting in that courtroom, watching my son lie under oath. Watching Brooke cry and claim they'd only wanted to help me. Watching their attorneys try to paint me as a vindictive old woman who couldn't accept her son's success, but the evidence was overwhelming. Every email I'd sent asking about repayment saved and time-stamped. Every voicemail where they'd promised just temporary and we'll pay you back soon. Bank statements showing the systematic drain of $92,000 over 4 years. Medical records proving my cognitive health was perfect. The security footage of Brooke breaking into my home. The recording of Trevor and Brooke discussing how to get Mom out of the house. The mover contract scheduled weeks before they'd told me anything. On the 19th day of trial, Trevor took the stand for cross-examination. Lawrence stood up, adjusted his glasses, and smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Mr. Winters, you testified that you were concerned about your mother's safety. Is that correct? Yes, Trevor said. His voice was defensive now, tight, yet in the recording we heard from the real estate agent, you said, and I quote, "We just need to get her out of the house and access the equity." That doesn't sound like concern for safety. That sounds like concern for money. That's taken out of context, is it? Lawrence pulled out a document. Let's talk about the money your mother gave you over 4 years. $92,000. Did you ever pay any of it back? We were going to. That's not what I asked. Did you ever pay any of it back? Yes or no. Trevor's jaw worked. No. Did you ever intend to pay it back? Silence. Mr. Winters, you're under oath. Things were tight financially, yes or no? Did you ever intend to pay your mother back the $92,000 she gave you? Trevor's face flushed red. No. A murmur went through the courtroom. Lawrence continued, his voice calm and relentless. Let's talk about the estate planning meeting. You arranged it, correct? Yes, you chose the lawyer. A friend of your wife's family, yes. Did you suggest your mother bring her own attorney to review the documents? She trusted me, yes or no, Mr. Winters? No. Did you explain to her that signing those papers would give you the ability to sell her home without her consent? That wasn't the lawyer explained. Did you explain it to her? Yes or no? Trevor looked at his attorney, who couldn't help him now. No. Because you didn't want her to understand what she was signing, did you? You wanted her confused. You wanted her to trust you blindly. Because if she'd understood what those papers really meant, she never would have signed them. Isn't that true? Trevor's hands gripped the witness stand. We were trying to help her. Help her by taking her home? Help her by draining her bank account? Help her by planning to have her declared incompetent and medicated? Lawrence held up the emails. We have your wife's messages discussing putting Mrs. Winters on medication to make her calm and compliant. How exactly does drugging your mother against her will constitute help? I didn't know about those emails, but you knew about the plan to sell her house without telling her until it was too late. You admitted that on the recording. You knew about scheduling the movers weeks in advance. You knew you were stealing from your mother. I wasn't stealing. It was my house. No, Mr. Winters. It wasn't. Your mother retained remainder interest. The sale was fraudulent. You knew it was fraudulent. And you did it anyway because you thought she was too old and too trusting to fight back. Lawrence's voice dropped, became quiet and deadly. You looked at the woman who gave you life and saw nothing but an ATM machine. And when the ATM stopped giving you money fast enough, you decided to take everything at once. Isn't that the truth? Trevor's face crumpled. For a moment, I saw the boy he used to be caught in a lie, knowing he was beaten, scrambling for any excuse. She was going to leave it to me anyway, he said, his voice breaking. When she died, it would all be mine. We just needed it now. We had debts, and the Portland house was perfect, and I thought she'd understand eventually. The courtroom went dead silent. Trevor's own attorney closed his eyes. That admission that entitled, revealing admission had just destroyed any remaining defense. And no further questions, Lawrence said, returning to his seat. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. I sat in the courthouse hallway with Lawrence and my sister. None of us spoke much. What was there to say? We'd presented the truth. Now 12 strangers would decide whether that truth mattered. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the bailiff emerged. We have a verdict. My legs felt weak as I walked back into the courtroom. Trevor and Brooke were already at their table. Brooke was crying again, real tears this time, not the performative ones she'd used earlier. Trevor's face was blank, shut down. The jury foreman stood. She was a black woman in her 50s, wearing a burgundy sweater. Her expression was unreadable. In the matter of the Commonwealth versus Trevor Winters, on the charge of elder abuse, we find the defendant guilty. Brooke's crying became sobs. On the charge of fraud, we find the defendant guilty. Trevor's attorney put a hand on his shoulder. On the charge of attempted theft, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of breaking and entering, we find the defendant Brooke Winters guilty. The jury foreman sat down. It was done. Sentencing came a week later. The judge was a woman named Patricia Morrison. She'd made her career fighting elder abuse, Lawrence had told me. She'd seen every kind of family betrayal, every manipulation, every way children found to exploit their parents. She didn't look sympathetic as Trevor and Brooke stood before her. I've been on the bench for 23 years, Judge Morrison began, her voice carrying through the courtroom. In that time, I've seen theft, assault, fraud of every variety. But the cases that disturb me most are ones like this. Cases where the people who should protect the victim are the ones victimizing them. She looked directly at Trevor. Mr. Winters, what you did to your mother represents the worst kind of betrayal. She loved you. She trusted you. She supported you financially even when it strained her own resources. And you repaid that love by treating her not as a person, but as a resource to be exploited until she was no longer useful. Trevor kept his eyes down. You didn't just try to steal her house. You tried to steal her autonomy, her dignity, her very identity as a capable human being. You planned to have her declared incompetent. You discussed medicating her against her will. You isolated her from friends and support systems. These are not the actions of a concerned son. These are the actions of a predator. Judge Morrison's voice hardened. The court orders full restitution of all funds obtained through fraud. $92,000 plus 7 years of interest at the statutory rate, which brings the total to $108,400. Brooke made a choking sound. Additionally, Mr. Winters, you will serve 18 months in a minimum security correctional facility, followed by 5 years of probation. During that probation, you are forbidden from any contact with the victim except through written communication, and only if she explicitly consents in writing first. Trevor's face had gone white. Mrs. Brooke Winters, for your role in this conspiracy, including the breaking and entering charge, you will serve 6 months in county jail, followed by 3 years probation with the same contact restrictions. The judge wasn't finished. Mrs. Beverly Winters, she looked directly at me. The court formally recognizes your full and complete ownership of your property. The attempted sale is voided. Any liens or claims against the property are dismissed with prejudice. Relief washed through me like cool water. I want to say something to you personally, Judge Morrison continued. I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry your son betrayed your trust in such a fundamental way. But I admire your courage in fighting back. Too many victims of elder abuse suffer in silence because they're ashamed or because they can't believe their own children would hurt them. You did what many cannot. I hope you're able to find peace in your home. She banged her gavel. Court is adjourned. If you're still watching, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because what happened next changed everything. 3 weeks after the verdict, Brooke filed for divorce. I wasn't surprised. She'd married Trevor for money and lifestyle, not love. A husband serving 18 months in prison, facing over $100,000 in restitution, with a criminal record that would follow him forever. That wasn't the life she'd signed up for. She sent me a letter. One letter, delivered to my house in a pink envelope that smelled like her perfume. I held it for a long time, looking at my name written in her careful handwriting. Then I walked to the fireplace, struck a match, and burned it without reading a single word. Whatever she had to say, I didn't need to hear it. Her tears in the courtroom, her sobs when the verdict came down, those weren't remorse. They were self-pity. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done to me. She was sorry she'd been caught. Trevor wrote to me once from prison. The letter came 4 months into his sentence. I did read his letter. I'm not sure why. Maybe I needed to see if there was any real remorse. Any genuine understanding of what he'd done. The letter was 3 pages long. It talked about how hard prison was. How the other inmates treated him. How he'd lost everything, his job, his wife, his reputation. How he'd had time to think about his choices, and at the end, "I'm sorry, Mom. I know I hurt you. I hope someday you can forgive me." I read it twice, looking for something real beneath the words. Some acknowledgement that he'd tried to destroy me. That he'd looked at his own mother and seen nothing but money. That he'd planned to drug me, to declare me incompetent, to steal not just my house but my very humanity. I didn't find it. The letter was about his suffering, not mine. His loss, not what he'd tried to take from me. I put the letter in a drawer. I didn't respond. Some betrayals are too fundamental to forgive. He hadn't just tried to steal my house. He tried to steal my autonomy, my dignity, my very identity as a capable human being. He'd looked at the woman who'd given him life and seen only an obstacle to overcome. That's not love twisted by circumstances. That's absence of love, revealed by greed. 6 months after the trial, I stood in my kitchen making pecan pie. My husband's recipe, the one we'd made together for 40 years. The morning light filtered through the same windows, illuminating the same copper pots. The roses bloomed in the garden outside. My husband's ashes rested under the oak tree. Everything was the same, everything was different. The house felt different now. Lighter somehow. Like a weight had been lifted. For years, longer than I'd realized, I'd been carrying the burden of Trevor's needs. His wants. His constant demands disguised as requests for help. Now I carried nothing but my own life. My own choices. My own future. I'd taken the restitution money, all $108,000, for $100, and done something with it that Trevor would never have imagined. I established a foundation. The Beverly Winters Fund for Elder Protection. Its mission was simple: provide free legal services to seniors being financially exploited by family members. Help them fight back. Help them reclaim their dignity and their lives. Lawrence agreed to run the legal team. He recruited 3 other attorneys who specialized in elder law, all of them driven by personal experiences with family betrayal. My friends from the Garden Club joined the board of directors. We met monthly, reviewing cases, approving funding, reaching out to social workers and healthcare providers to identify victims who needed help. The first case we took on was a woman named Dorothy. Her daughter had forged her name on a reverse mortgage. By the time Dorothy realized what had happened, she was 3 months away from losing her home of 35 years. We got her a lawyer. Fought the mortgage company. Proved the fraud. Dorothy kept her home. The second case was a man named Robert. His son had stolen his retirement accounts, over $200,000, and fled to another state. We tracked him down. Got law enforcement involved. Robert got his money back, and his son got 5 years in prison. The third, fourth, fifth cases, they kept coming. An epidemic of betrayal hiding behind closed doors and family dinners. Children measuring their parents' worth in dollars. Adult children seeing elder care as an inconvenience rather than an honor. In the first year alone, we helped 43 families. 43 people who'd been told they were being difficult or paranoid or ungrateful. 43 victims who found the courage to fight back. We won 38 of those cases. I'm 74 now. 1 year older than when Trevor made his phone call. 1 year wiser. 1 year stronger. I wake every morning in the home my husband built. I make coffee in the kitchen where I taught my son to crack eggs, though I try not to think about that anymore. I paint in my studio, watching the sun rise over the Blue Ridge Mountains. My garden club meets every Thursday. I have lunch with my sister once a month. She visits from California now, staying in my guest room, sleeping in sheets I chose without anyone's permission. I volunteer at the foundation 3 days a week. Meet with victims. Hold their hands when they cry. Tell them they're not alone. Tell them they're not weak for trusting their children. Tell them they have every right to fight back. Some nights, when the house is quiet and the stars are bright, I walk through rooms filled with memories. I touch furniture my husband chose. Look at photographs of happier times, though I've taken down most of the ones with Trevor. Not out of spite, but because I don't recognize the boy in those photos anymore. That boy is gone. In his place is a stranger who's serving out his sentence, who'll be released in 8 more months with a criminal record and a debt he'll spend years paying off. I don't know what will happen when he gets out. If he'll try to contact me. If he'll have learned anything from his time in prison. If he'll ever truly understand what he tried to do to me. But I know this, he will never set foot in my house again. He will never have access to my bank accounts. He will never again make me doubt my own worth or my own mind, and I whisper to the walls sometimes, late at night when I'm alone, "You're mine. You were always mine. And no one will ever take you from me again." The house whispers back in settling beams and sighing windows, "We know. We know." People say blood is thicker than water. People say you should always forgive family. People say a mother's love is unconditional, but I learned something in that courthouse, watching my son lie under oath. Love may be unconditional, but trust is not. Respect is not. Access to your life is not. I loved my son. Past tense. The Trevor I loved died the day he decided my house mattered more than my heart. What walks around wearing his face now is a stranger who made a critical mistake. He thought his mother was weak. He learned otherwise, and that lesson cost him everything: his freedom, his marriage, his reputation, his relationship with the only parent he had left. Was it worth it? I ask myself that sometimes. Was fighting back worth losing my son forever? The answer is always the same: I didn't lose my son. He lost himself. The moment he looked at me and saw dollar signs instead of the woman who'd sacrificed everything for him, that's when I lost him. Fighting back just made the loss official. Now, before I end this story, I need to talk to you directly. Because if you're watching this, maybe you see yourself in my story. Maybe you're being manipulated by someone you love. Maybe you've been giving money you can't afford to give. Maybe someone's pressuring you to sign papers you don't understand. Let me tell you the warning signs of financial elder abuse. First, isolation. If someone's making excuses to keep you away from friends and family, that's a red flag. Abusers isolate their victims to maintain control. Second, escalating financial requests. It starts small, just this once, just until things get better. But it never gets better. The requests get bigger and more frequent. Third, pressure to make quick legal or financial decisions. Any legitimate professional will give you time to think, time to consult your own attorney. If someone's rushing you, ask yourself why. Fourth, gaslighting about your memory or capabilities. If someone keeps telling you you're forgetful or confused when you're not, they're trying to make you doubt yourself. That's psychological abuse. Fifth, threats disguised as concern. What if you fall and no one finds you? You're getting older, you need help managing things. These statements aren't always abuse, but combined with other signs, they're weapons. If you're experiencing any of these things, here's what you need to do. Document everything. Save emails, texts, voicemails. Keep records of all financial transactions. Screenshot everything. The paper trail will save you. Tell someone you trust. A friend outside the situation. A different family member. A professional counselor. Breaking the silence breaks the power. Consult an attorney immediately. Do not sign anything without independent legal advice. If someone tells you you don't need your own lawyer, that's a massive red flag. Contact Adult Protective Services. Every state has resources for elder abuse victims. You are not alone. Know your rights. You have the right to manage your own finances. The right to make your own decisions. The right to say no. Age doesn't take those rights away, and most importantly, you are not too old to fight back. I was 73 when my son tried to steal my house. 73 when I had to take him to court. 73 when I had to choose between peace and justice. I chose justice, and I'm here to tell you, fighting back was the best decision I ever made. Yes, I lost my son. But I kept myself. My dignity. My home. My future, you can too. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it gave you courage, hit that like button right now, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it's another senior being taken advantage of. Maybe it's an adult child who needs to understand the damage they're doing. Maybe it's a friend who works with the elderly and needs to recognize the signs. Drop a comment below and tell me, what would you have done in my situation? Have you experienced financial abuse from family? How did you handle it? And please, subscribe to Voice of Auntie Kattie and turn on those notifications. Because every week, I'm bringing you stories like this. Stories of justice, redemption, and people who refuse to be victims. Stories that show you that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. The Beverly Winters Fund exists in this story as a symbol of what's possible when you transform pain into purpose. While this specific fund may be fictional, organizations like it exist all over the country, fighting for elder rights every single day. You are not alone in this fight. You are not weak for being taken advantage of by someone you love. You are not too old to reclaim your life. Remember, no one, absolutely no one, has the right to steal your dignity and call it loved. I'm Auntie Kattie, and I'll see you in the next story. God bless you all.